Remembrance Day and remembering the sacrifice, it's not enough just to remember. We want to change off the back of that. We want to make a change. We don't want to stay in the same place. Just in the same way as that, when we remember Jesus' sacrifice, this should also move us to action. We don't stay the same as we were. How does remembering sacrifice change how we live today? Well, for this, I'm actually going to refer to Romans chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. It says this: I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So what is this saying? What is a living sacrifice? I mean, that's probably a whole sermon in itself. But a living sacrifice is sanctification. It is, which is a word that was preached about recently, it is laying down living for ourselves and living for God. This is a nice definition of it. Paul redefines sacrifice as a living, ongoing act of worship, contrasting with dead sacrifices of the Old Testament. This involves dedicating one's entire being to God, reflecting a life of holiness and service. That is the action that we should be driven to when we reflect on Jesus' sacrifice. So a few practical questions then. What does sacrifice look like for you? What things are painful maybe that we have to give up in order to follow Jesus fully? What things do we love? I know Jonathan asked this question last week. He said, who here loves money? That is a big one, right? We love money very easily, and time as well. They're, I'd say, the two big things in our culture that we value and are of highest value. How can we lay those things down for Jesus? Well, I mean, one practical thing, as Jonathan was preaching on last week, we give financially. Like, that is a sacrifice. It hurts sometimes to give that money because we know that we need that money for something else. But Jesus calls us to lay it down. Let's not let that be God and be ahead of God. And that's why we lay it down. In the same way, time. Time is something we always feel like we want more of. There's never enough time in the day. If only there was more time. And so actually we lay it down and we say, how can we give this time to God? A practical way of that is serving. Like actually giving up a few hours on a Sunday, maybe once a month. Or just in your own life, how can you pause in the busyness and take time to love those around you? So a few questions to reflect on as we go back into worship. Maybe if the band can come back up, and then we'll just start playing gently as we take just a minute or two to reflect on these questions, and then we're going to go and we're going to respond to this in worship. Number one, what is taking priority in my life? Just have a think on that. What things, in reality, maybe just sits as this thing I just can't quite let go of. Let the Holy Spirit prompt you on that. Secondly, where do I need to say yes to God? Is there something God is saying, I want you to go and do this, and you're kind of hanging back? Maybe take a moment and just say, you know what? Actually, yes, God, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to be obedient to your will. Number three, a challenge, just your practical day-to-day life. How would Jesus live if he were in my place? We all have different responsibilities and things we have to do, and we say, wow, you know, if I lived back then when Jesus was, it would be different. But, you know, like I'm working 2 jobs and I've got kids and all of these other pressures. But actually, if God was in that situation, what would it look like with Jesus living that life? And that's how he wants you to live. Yeah, let's just take a moment, let's reflect on them, and then we'll go back into worship.